my program is in plant nutrition. And so what that's meant over the past few years is morphing from just studying what the plants need to produce a good crop to also thinking about the environmental implication of the use of nitrogen and phosphorus fertilizers. So the first thing on my list was a project that's a partnership between the Cranberry Station, Casey Kennedy and his group from ARS, the MBL down in Woods Hole, the Marine Biological Laboratory, and the Coalition for Buzzards Bay. And as a consortium, we received some funding from a program that it's pass-through money from EPA to look at issues in coastal waters. And so that project has been looking at nitrogen that might come from cranberry bogs that could have impacts in coastal waters. And what we have found was that the amount of nitrogen coming in and out of the cranberry bogs is generally pretty low. We studied 3 bogs. One had a net output of nitrogen, and the other 2 actually retained nitrogen, so less came out than went in the water. But any nitrogen that does get in the water can move in groundwater, it can move in surface water, and the same is the case for phosphorus. So even though this was a coastal program focused on nitrogen, if you collect the water samples, it's not that hard to run the phosphorus analyses as well. And if the bog is more inland and is releasing phosphorus, that can impact inland water bodies, which are more sensitive to phosphorus. So we looked at that as well, and again, the outputs were low. And that is a really interesting thing. So I've been involved in 3 or 4 big studies looking at nutrient balances coming in and out of cranberry bogs. And over the time period of those studies, which runs about almost 20 years, the numbers that we're getting in the most recent work for phosphorus are much lower than the numbers we used to get at the early work. And that is attributable to changing grower practice as a result of the work that I've done, the education that I've done in conjunction with the Growers Association, to first show growers that they can grow good crops with less phosphorus fertilizer, and then to demonstrate the positive effect that has on their water. And so we can show at one of our sites that we studied for, I think we're in year 13 or 14 now, that at about year 5 of a drastic change in management compared to the precondition, the phosphorus in their harvest flood releases had declined by 85%. So just the simple change in practice has had a huge environmental benefit. So, you know, I'm kind of taking a long view here, seeing how this is the last time I'll be talking to you like this. So, so I feel like, you know, that's been a huge accomplishment, is working with growers to reduce their fertilizer use and improve this water quality. On the bottom of the page is some results from a project that was a cooperative effort. I was the principal investigator, but the primary researchers were Peter Jeranyama and Casey Kennedy. This was looking at tile drainage on bogs. It was funded by the Northeast SARE, again, the Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education. And in underneath your packet, there are 2 handouts. One says use of tile drainage in Massachusetts cranberry production, and the other one is best management practices for tile use. These are products from that project. They're on our website. We'll be distributing them in hard copy in newsletters or at meetings in the future. But what we found was, what we were able to find is by working with growers who had installed tile drain, we were able to come up with the parameters, the best parameters for how far apart you would want to put them, what factors you'd use to decide the depth, because that is not one size fits all, it's more soil dependent. And the graphic on your handout is basically showing what happened to grow, what the outcome was for growers who added tile drainage to existing bogs. And we surveyed them, and we see that 60% found that more than 60% found that their yield and fruit quality both improved by adding tile drainage. And then, you know, they also needed to irrigate less, they had fewer puddles, and their soil moisture was more uniform. So this has been, you know, as I said, a group effort that wrapped up this past year. The other thing that's been going on that I think we discussed a little bit last year is the regulation of nutrient management that has come to the Commonwealth. As a result of that, I made a major revision to our chart book recommendations so that growers could be in compliance with good nutrient management practices, and then I worked with the Growers Association on educating folks, you know, how you should plan to apply your nutrients. And we designed some tools for growers to use, some online tools where they could do calculations of how much nutrient they'd be applying depending on their fertilizer choice. I also mentioned the compendium that Annie already showed you. I was involved with writing some of the sections of that over the years. And then the last thing that I've been working on this summer is we have now some new formulations of fertilizers that are available to cranberry growers and are being marketed to cranberry growers, including controlled release granular materials and some liquid materials that can be applied through the irrigation system. So I have, over the past 2 years, did some work looking at the controlled release and comparing them to the fast-acting materials, and I've been presenting that information to growers. But what we did this year is we took the 2 bogs that the station manages and used them as demonstrations. So out here, we took the section of Stevens that's at the far end. We used controlled release fertilizer on that section. The next section down, we used liquid fertilizer. And the checkerboard section where we have mixed varieties, did I get that right? No. The checkerboard section had the controlled release fertilizer. One section of Stevens had liquid, and the other section of Stevens had our regular granular program that's more similar to what most growers use. And so we had that comparison here. And then at Rocky Pond, we had our standard grower practice program on one side, and on the other side, we had a hybrid that was part that program, and then dropping out some of the granular material and replacing it with a liquid fish fertilizer that actually is made from fish and craisin waste that they sweep up off the floor at the Ocean Spray plant. So we did all these differential applications. We collected information on how the plants grew, on how much crop there was, on the quality, and then we looked at the soil and tissue nitrogen and phosphorus amounts, and I'm compiling all that information right now, and we'll be presenting it at the January grower meeting. So that's pretty much what I have been working on.